Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and welcome to another tier list video. I hope you watched my video from yesterday. That was a big step in the right direction for the channel. And while I am planning on winding down on the tier list videos, I was actually working on another video in the same vein as yesterday, but for the Space Marines. But I realized that I actually hated the way the video was going to come out, so I kind of had to scrap that. And I was going to use some old footage for the Alpha Legion, about 10 months old, that never got published on the channel, but I want to save that for the video it was originally intended for. So we're going to do one of these little tier lists. Again, don't want to do these videos super often, but I just thought that we could do one in this desperate situation, one could say. Again, Chaos Sorcerers, nowhere near as many as any of the other characters we've mentioned, or covered rather, and definitely one of the last one of these I plan to do. We'll probably do a Primaris Lieutenant one just for the memes, and then we'll do just maybe a big compilation video or something along those lines, but again, I still plan to do tier lists, but I plan to not use this website anymore because these images are too small. Anyways, that's enough preamble. Let's get right into it with our first Sorcerer. We're starting in 2nd edition and working our way through in chronological order with this guy right here. So this Sorcerer looks kind of insane, to be honest, which again I think is fitting for 40k. I do like the dragon backpack. This is something that is pretty consistent across the various sorcerers of Chaos. He's wearing pretty standard power armor. I do kind of like this helmet. It's just insane enough to work, in my opinion. I love the huge, tall spikes. And I like that they have some runes going on in the armor around here. The staff is actually pretty well proportioned. I think a lot of staffs from this era tend to be obnoxiously huge, but this seems about right, all things considered. Definitely a great miniature. Not my favorite one from this era, but we're starting off real strong. I think I'm going to give this guy an A tier. I really like him. I wish I grabbed him when he was on Made to Order, but hey, hindsight is 2020. Next up, we have our next 2nd edition Sorcerer. Definitely not as high on this guy. He still has the dragon backpack going on, which I really like. He's wielding a force axe with a bit of a snake tongue going on, which is okay. His helmet is interesting. It feels very, it feels very caricaturized. Not as big a fan of this head crest. I think it's lacking a little bit of texture or something similar. Armor is not quite as fun. It definitely feels very proto Thousand Suns. The Thousand Suns did exist at this time, but it was just kind of one Rubric Marine mini. But this head crest definitely has some lineage in the head crests of aspiring sorcerers of today, and this sort of not exactly sure how to describe this style of trim. It's not quite as spiky, but more rounded. Definitely lives on in the Thousand Suns of today. Not as high on this model, though. It just doesn't really come together for me. I do enjoy 2nd edition miniatures, but this guy is not one that I particularly care for. This guy, I think I'll be giving him a C tier personally. Next up, we have an absolute classic Chaos Sorcerer mini. This one is definitely the most famous of this trio for the main reason that he was in Dawn of War. He was the Sorcerer in the Dawn of War games, 1 and 2. The only Dawn of War games. 1, 2, and their expansions. This was how the Chaos Sorcerer looked because this model was on sale for an obscene amount of time. And I think for good reason. I'm not sure if I like him more than the first guy we've looked at, but he definitely feels the most refined of all of them. The dragon-headed backpack is still here and still looking great. Head crest is, I'd say pretty nice. It's nice and angular. The spikes from the Chaos Star are a nice little touch. I like this helmet. It's very unique. It's almost vulture-like in its shape. It's not quite as insane as the first one we looked at. I like the stuff hanging off of his robe. His sword looks shockingly like Dracnian. Abaddon's sword. These spikes on the side really remind me of that. I may be mistaking that with a different sword, but whatever. I think that overall, this model's pretty solid. I probably like the first guy we looked at a little more, but this guy is undeniably the most famous of the three. Maybe not. Maybe I'm insane, but I mean, I have so many hours in Dark Crusade, so I'm super familiar with all the stuff in that game, to the point where I've gotten sick of playing it. Can you imagine? But I'll give this guy a B tier. I like him more than him, but less than him. Next up, we have everyone's favorite botched big sorcerer, Ahriman of the Thousand Suns. All of the original Chaos characters, except for Lucius, looked really good, especially for the era they came out in. I think Ahriman just looks fantastic. I love the very ornate horns that go all around his head. Reminds me a little bit of Eliphas, also from Dawn of War. His 4 exhaust power pack is a nice touch. Something that it's kind of Primarch-like, honestly. I feel like a lot of the Primarchs in the Heresy miniature range definitely resemble these kind of power packs. It does. One thing to note is it looks like his bolt pistol is missing its magazine. I'm not entirely sure why. This model was obviously made to order and on sale for a while. That's most of these models, I think, actually are all very modern pictures, which is nice. We've had some miniatures that have had really grainy pictures. I think this guy, though, looks fantastic. I love the earrings, if you'll call them that. I guess they're not technically earrings, but that's what I'm going to call them. And his staff is nice. A little taller than the first guy we looked at, but I think that fits because Ahriman's a cool dude. And I do quite like the Thousand Suns aesthetic. I'm just going to admit that. So yeah, I think Ahriman is going to get an A tier. Just a great model, like most of the original Chaos characters. Karn, Nurgle, Karn, Typhus, and Ahriman look great. And then Lucius, I can never get over this. So Typhus, or first it was Ahriman and Karn, right? They were the first 2 specific characters released. Then a few years later, we got Typhus, and Lucius the Eternal came out in 2006. He was the youngest of them, and he was by far the worst looking. Thankfully, his update's really good, along with the rest of the Emperor's Children, who definitely need a video. I'm going to see if I can't get my hands on one of those new Emperor's Children to do a lore painting video. Next up, we have the Aspiring Sorcerer of the classic Rubric Marines, who is somewhere in here. There he is. So, this is what the old Aspiring Sorcerer for the Rubric Marines looked like. There's definitely some similarities to this model here. If you look at his dangly flag bit, it's almost exactly the same. It's this golden thing. It's got the 3 scrolls, and then it ends in the 3 prongs. See what I mean? Look here, and then look here. You can see it's very similar. But this guy, I think, is just a more refined version of that. I think this headdress looks fine, but it's a little confusing as to how this is, like, flowy and this is not. That probably could have used some delineation, unless the entire thing is supposed to be flowy. It could be warp magic, for all we know, which is a totally valid excuse. I'm not going to say it isn't. But yeah, I quite like this model. I think this model, I didn't notice this until now, is actually just a modified version of this guy. This was a one-piece metal miniature from the Rubric Marines upgrade sprue. But yeah, there's just too many similar. This has to be just a repurposed version of him. New head, slightly different backpack, I think, but the pose is the same. This weapon and head are really the only things that are different. I mean, that kind of shows what a different head and weapon can do for you. This model looks significantly better than this one, which, yeah, there's no way. Hold on, I need to show this off. Let me just shrink you down a little bit. So we've got this, and we've got, come here, and we've got this. Look at this. These are the same model. But this one just has a different head and different weapon. His bolt pistol's the same, his power pack's the same, the shoulder pads have the same... his right shoulder pad's different. See? This has the skull. This one is mirrored from the other side now. But look here. Look at these 2 shapes here, and these 2 shapes here. Uh-huh. I never knew that. This is just a modified version of this model. Isn't that funny? Huh. Well, regardless, this guy does look significantly better. Again, a head and a weapon make all the difference, and a shoulder pad, I suppose. But yeah, even look here. The chain, it's right here. And of course, the eye in the middle, right there. Huh. Isn't that funny? Regardless, yeah, this guy looks significantly better. He'll be getting an A tier just behind Ahriman. Or no, I'm going to give him a B tier. Next up, we have Typhus. I've already sung the praises of this miniature. I'm quite a big fan of it. It feels very imposing and heavy. I much prefer that look for Death Guard compared to their more comical modern-day incarnation. I like that the Nurglings look like evil gremlins. Though I do like silly Nurglings. It's nice to see a little bit of menace in these little demons. I love the way the horns are growing out of his armor, and the tubules here for the Destroyer Plague, I want to say it's called. Destroyer Hive, something along those lines. Very, very well done. And his helmet looks great, and the pose is just magnifique. I need to get this model. When I do a Death Guard video for like lore and painting, it'll probably be on this guy. Yeah, love this model. Just fantastic. What a shame, S tier. Next up, we go quite a bit further. So here we ended off in 2003, and we're jumping forward to 2009 with another nurgle sorcerer. Here he is. This guy is Necrosius the Undying. He was part of the Siege of Vrax miniature line from Forge World. Of course, being painted by the Forge World team, he's a little harder to delineate what's going on. Just these pictures aren't as high quality as the other ones. This guy leans into the overgrowing flesh. This arm and his other leg are just like flesh grown over his armor, which I think is a fine look. Pose is all right. Back banner is always a nice touch. I'm a big back banner fan. Also, he's got the cloven feet that Nurgle are very known for. Plague Marines, I should say. Couple of holes in his armor for flesh to poke through. This holster looks a little off place, but whatever. I actually quite like the corroding metal on his power pack. But this guy, to me, doesn't strike me much as a sorcerer, which, to be fair, Typhus doesn't either, but at least he's got the demons tagging along with him to add a little bit of that, and Typhus's model is just masterclass. Not the biggest fan of this guy. He's just a little plain, in my opinion. Necrosius the Undying is this guy's name, by the way. I'll probably put him down here, actually. Next up, also around the same time, we have the Chaos Sorcerer mini from 6th edition. So this guy was pretty much we went a very long time without a new Chaos Sorcerer. It was basically the guys from the 90s and then nothing until the late 2000s. This model, I think, is alright. He's got the robe going on, which I think is always a nice look. He's got a two-pronged sword at the tip. It's a demon blade, I believe. The bolt pistol here looks very kind of blocky and like spindly. Not the biggest fan of that. Pose is alright. Again, kind of a similar thing with the Necrosius. There's not a lot going on here. He's got the book and the skull on a chain and the corrupted Librarius logo. But I think the model's alright. Just alright is where I would put him. Yeah. Not the biggest fan of this helmet. It's very, it kind of reminds me of like Squidward or maybe the old Surprised Patrick meme. You know, the one from the SpongeBob movie where he's looking at the, where'd the road. Stop that, Patrick. I'm sorry, I had to. Yeah, this model's just fine, though, to put it simply. He's fine. And that's where I'd put him in B tier. Next up, on a far more positive note, we have one of my favorite Chaos Space Marine miniatures from around the same time. This is the dual build for the Chaos Lord and Terminator armor with his Sorcerer variant. So, this guy's got a lot of options, but the main thing I love here is this helmet. It's so cool. I always really liked T-visor helmets for Chaos Marines mainly. And the four-pronged, again, I always call it like guitar heads, I think is just a really cool look. The staff, I think, is well done. I like the bladed ends to it. And his pose is very good, alongside his cape being nice and flowy. I think this guy still fits in very well with the modern-day Marines, even though his detail is a lot blockier and less fine than the modern Marines. I think he looks great. This face is a little silly, but, I mean, I love this model. He's sitting on my shelf behind me. I'm looking at him. Though I did build him as a Lord, I used this helmet, because this helmet's just way too cool. I'll be giving this guy an A tier. Next up, we're on to our first of the returned Primarchs with Magnus. This guy, of course, been kicking around the warp for a very long time. Came out. This guy just turned 11, if I'm not. No, he just turned 9. This guy came out in 2016. Magnus's model, to no surprise, is fantastic. I even don't mind the nipple horns. I think they look fine. He's got a few different head sculpts, which aren't all pictured, of course. The wings are just insanely ornate and fancy. Great place for painters to spread their wings. Pun not intended. I quite like his staff with the orb of fire sort of orbiting around its blade. I think that fits very, very well. And overall, I think this model is really solid. The armor's nice and ornate. It has a lot of the bird imagery you expect from Tzeentch. His pose is very nice. It's the offering pose, which I think works well for a character of his stature. Never noticed. That's actually kind of a smart little design detail. His arms are sort of different sizes, and also, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I didn't notice that. Look, his arm here, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4 fingers, and then you go over here, and he's got all 5. So that's interesting. I guess Tzeentch is, like the god of mutations, so I think that makes sense. And obviously there's a lot more like bone and feathers or things like that growing out of this arm. I never noticed his right arm is more mutated than his left. Small details that you should appreciate the model more. Magnus is just a masterclass model. Not sure if I'd ever own him myself, mainly because I just, this model's beyond my skill level. I'm going to be real. Even though I love painting musculature, I'm just not sure I could do this justice. It's a fabulous model, no doubt. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with me that he belongs in S tier. Next up, we have the first of the Exalted Sorcerers, this guy being on a disc. This guy is from a 3-pack with a couple other sorcerers, and is very customizable, I'll admit. Though I will say this loadout is not one I particularly like. He's got a lot of arms going on. He's got 3 arms on his right side, very spindly little mortal-sized arms. Then on his left, he's got his normal arm. I do like this. This is kind of cool. The hand is like creating bullets to feed his bolt pistol. That's cool, I'll admit that. He's on a disc. This disc can actually be flipped upside down, if I'm not mistaken. And he's got the chained book, which I think is a cool look. Again, didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. Staff is simple but effective, I'd say. It's got the Tzeentch fire logo at the top, as you see there. And this model in general, I think, of course, very modern. I do enjoy the modern Thousand Suns, though I will say this guy is not my favorite. I just don't really dig this arm look. This whole kit isn't really my favorite, even though it's got so many bits. It's a great value box. But yeah, it doesn't do too much for me, like actual model-wise, unfortunately. I'll be giving this guy a B tier. That may seem low, but hey, it's my list. If you want to make your own, make it and tell me where you put that guy. Next up, we have the next of the Exalted Sorcerers. I'm going to move him here. This guy, I think, is a good bit better. We've got the bird right forearm, but you still got a shoulder pad. I do like that. Do like this power pack quite a lot. This pose is very cool. It looks like he's casting a spell. It almost looks like he's... How's the way to put this? I can't remember his name. There's a guy in Street Fighter, in Tekken 8, that does like a magic bow in this kind of pose. That's what it reminds me of. If anyone knows who I'm talking about, leave his name down below, because I'm not going to look it up. But he's really cool. He goes like, Evajecti, and sends people to the moon using magic. Anyways, we're getting really sidetracked. This model, out of the 3, is definitely my favorite. This sort of build, because the torsos, or the bodies, are the same. It's just like the arms and power packs you can change. I like this pose the most. I like the dangling scriptures, or whatever you want to call these things, looking like they're literally flying out to like peck and bite at people. I think that's very cool. The bird knee pad is a nice touch, and this power pack is just really, really cool. I feel like if I got this, I would want to turn these into like snake heads. I think that would make a good bit for my Alpha Legion. I love the double cape setup. I believe that is optional, but it looks fantastic, so why wouldn't you do it? This model, big step up from the disc guy. I'll be giving him an A tier. Next up, we have the last of the Exalted Sorcerers, and I'm not a big fan of this guy. Big bird feet, nah. I think the arms look fine. I like the fancy power pack, or like large ridges going on around here. I hate this head. Bird head, it just looks weird to me. I like the staff with the spinning sort of gyroscope system in there, whatever that's for, who knows. This guy, this is slightly unfortunate, but it looks like he's passing gas to fly through the air. I feel like this pose needs something. Like, this needs to be like ascending into a demon prince or something. But yeah, this guy I think I like even less than our floating disc pal. I'll put him probably right here. Next up, we have, of course, keeping in line with the Airman line of miniatures. This guy is fabulous. Again, still keeps his earrings, very fancy. He still has the 6 horn setup, which is really cool. 4-pronged power pack just adds an extra bit of weight to the character. His staff still simple but very, very effective. I love the flowing waist cape, the little trinkets dangling off his belt, and the magic immaterium energy flowing through his hand is very cool. And he's kind of doing a similar pose to Magnus, where he's like, I've got my hand outstretched, and I'm going to shake your hand and curse you. Very fitting for Aramin, I'd say. The skull, the ram skull on his left shoulder pad, very nice. The level of filigree is just good in general. I think this guy, very, very solid. And his disc looks great. Like, this is how I want my discs of Tzeentch to look. So, very happy with how that came out. And you can also build him off of it, if I'm not mistaken, which is very, very good. Aramin, great miniature. Great. S tier. I think I actually might like him slightly more than I like Magnus. Next up, we have the Aspiring Sorcerer of the Plastic Rubric Marines from the same era. I love this kit. I just absolutely adore the Rubric Marines. So unsurprisingly, I really like this guy. His helmets, there's a few options, but this is the best one. Again, T-visor, really cool. The power pack with the bird heads is very, very solid. I love the stripe work. I know a lot of people really dread painting these guys. I found painting them in Alpha Legion colors actually not that bad. I love all the stripes going on. The dangling... Whoops, sorry, just my nippers fell off my table. I feel like this happens every video. The dangling scriptures, I think, is very solid. Pose is good. I like this hand with the eye going on. Who's that? Does that was Datara, if I'm not mistaken. That's a mouth in that case, not an eye, but that's what comes to mind. Yeah, I think this guy's really solid. Definitely a step up from the classic Aspiring Sorcerer. Yeah, I quite like this model. I'll be giving him an A tier. Yeah. I hate Zangors. Mortarion is up next. Of course, probably the most self-loathing psyker there is. Sure, he hates psychic powers, but he does use them. And Mortarion's model is amazing. It's just amazing. The armor is so fancy and baroque. His wings are rotted to just the right amount while being nice. They're sort of a cross between dragon wings and insect wings, which makes sense. This guy is how I want my nurgle, Marines to feel. For Mortarion, it makes perfect sense. He just looks so dour and scary. Look at this face. It's insane. The lantern, his energy pistol, is very fancy. The whole vibe from Death Guard is very steampunky, I find. Lots of rivets. Not uncommon for Chaos Space Marines, but especially in their weapons. I notice a lot of it. I love the descending, plague smoke and the little nurglings carrying his sensors. And this little guy down here, who's got oh my, I didn't even notice this. I thought he was holding up the icon. This is a little nurgling sorcerer. Isn't that great? I'd want to put him on his own base, like I did with the Plague Marine champion. This model is just fantastic. Silence looks as insane as ever. The ribs on the back is great. The sawed tip alongside curved power blade is just great. Mortarion is definitely one of my favorite Death Guard minis, and I know it's kind of cheating. But, you'd be out of your mind to say this isn't a good miniature. If you say that, you're just lying. You're flat out lying. This is a fantastic miniature. Surprisingly lightweight, too. I remember I was at a tournament that I hated playing in. But I still enjoyed the pizza. Anyways, back on track. I played against Death Guard, and I asked, can I take a look at your Mortarion? He's like, yeah. Wonderfully painted. But I picked it up, and I mean, Mortarion, he's light as a feather. It's like you're holding nothing at all. I think he's completely hollow, which makes sense. If he was solid, he would weigh like 3 pounds. But yeah, Mortarion, masterclass. Out of the Demon Primarchs, I think it's between him and Angron for number 1. Mortarion's a fantastic model. It's exactly what I like. It does strike a good balance of having the silliness and the creepiness, which is how I want my Death Guard. Speaking of Death Guard, we have the Malignant Plague Caster. Yipes. Talk about a come down. Really stumpy. This is not a staff. This is more of a wand. The mouth and the armor leading to a bunch of rolls of disgusting deceased flesh with maggots in the side. Fits Nurgle, but I just don't think it looks good. This stanky waft spell, which he's blowing out of his mouth, is something. It is something. He's got his toes hanging out. A little strange, in my opinion. This model's hideous. Yeah, it's hideous. It's undeniably, it's hideous. It's hideous, and I'm not going to say it isn't. Hideous. C tier. Next up, we have Typhus's mini reboot. So moving from Indomitus to Cataphracti, strike 1, obviously, huge downgrade. And Pose, another downgrade. I think this is the same pose Tigerius does. He's doing Tigerius' pose. Just isn't what I want from my Plagued Marines. This guy should look dour and intimidating. Him being jovial should be a fun counterpoint to his horrifying appearance. I just don't get that from this model. Not a big fan of all the destroyer flies coming out of the hive that is his body. But as far as I know, you can't leave those off, so if I ever get Typhus, which I highly doubt I will, I would leave those off. I'm not going to say it's a bad model, because I think it is well made, obviously. I think the detail's all very clean, but it's just a downgrade, in my opinion, from Classic Typhus, which is a shame, because I love Classic Typhus. I'll give him a B tier. I'll be generous and give him a B tier. Above Birdman. I don't like you. Here we have the newest generic Chaos Space Marine Sorcerer, and this guy I think is just fine. He doesn't have a helmet option, which is a shame. He does have the dragon backpack. I like that. The spile icon being cast is nice, and I do like his robes. I think I'm warming up to this model a little bit. Not really. I like the backpack, the spell in his hand, and that's kind of where it ends. The end of it is just the rest of it's just kind of whatever. He almost looks too, normal, His pose is just walking forward and casting a little icon of chaos, or an Eye of Horus. I'm not a big fan. I like the dragon backpack and the spell. That's about it. It's a shame, because Chaos Space Marines have probably they do have one of the best mini ranges in 40k. This guy, though, pretty weak outing. I'll be giving him probably a B tier, right around this guy. Next up, we have the not Exalted Sorcerer. No. This is the it's the guy who plays Yu-Gi-Oh! Infernal Master. This guy's pretty cool. Personally, if I had him, I'd probably cut off this headdress. Don't like that. Rest of the helmet, though, fantastic. Pose, great. He's, wiping through reality to call forth his little mini screamers, which also look great. Also, this is one of the most convincing floating effects GW's ever done. It genuinely took me a second to realize it's attached to the rock here. I'm like, where's this attached to? And I'm like, oh, right there. I love the stripes here. Reminds me of the Arizona state flag, actually. The one shoulder cape is always a pretty sick look, in my opinion. I like his staff. It's simple but effective. The burning braziers or burning soap on his back, I think looks really cool. It also fits the motion of the model very well. It looks like he's sweeping forward with his hand, because he is, and he's calling forth the infernal beings of the warp. Yeah, this model is just fantastic. I've loved him since he came out. Again, I would just get rid of this headdress going on, and this model would be perfect. But with that, I'll still give him an A tier. Probably right... Wait a minute, hold on. No, you're supposed to be up here. And then finally, we have the last of our sorcerers, and the only mortal sorcerer on this list, unless you count Zangors, but Zangors suck! We have the Mind Slave, if I'm not mistaken, if that's not the name of it. I can't remember which. This is really good. From the Dark Commune, for Chaos Space Marines, of course. You've just got a great element of sort of body horror nonsense going on here. So you've got the head of this guy mounted to just an insane Sid from Toy Story type machine. His brain is just bulging out of his skull, and the rest of his body has presumably been removed for more power. He's got a crazy-looking horn jutting out of his head. He's got a bunch of things injected into him. And then you got the poor sod who has to carry this thing around. He's wired into him, presumably... I'm not sure what one of them is blood, obviously. What the other is, who knows? Human juice? It's being pumped full of human juice. I like the candles everywhere. It adds into that, again, horror 40k aesthetic. This is one of the more 40k models ever. It's the exact right balance of insanity and surrealness. Because it is just absurd in the right level to be perfectly insane. Yeah, what a great model, right? Is there anyone who doesn't like the Dark Commune? It's a great selection of models in general. I really like those Blessed Blades. They remind me of the Witch King of Angmar. Anyways, let's rank this guy, and then we're out of here. I'll be giving this guy probably an A tier, probably at the very bottom of A tier. I do quite like him, but I just like some of the others more. Sorcerers, pretty even spread, all things considered. I've been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.